You know, if you're just out there in the parking lot or something like that and you walk up on this vehicle, first thing that goes through your mind, at least the first time I saw one, was, what is it? Well, the last thing in the world I would have thought it was a Hyundai Santa Fe. But this is the all-new 2025 version. Of course, it was completely redone in 2024, but I've been trying to get one for a year, and I finally got one to explain and to display to you. It's an all-new remake of a very popular vehicle, a vehicle that I happen to have been very fond of, all the way back to the first edition, which was 2001, I believe. Can you believe that? Well, let's take a look at our brand new Hyundai Santa Fe, which is quite the interesting SUV. How we have grown. You know, the thing is, what happens a lot these days is SUVs that started out life as a two-row SUV have now become three-row. And this is no exception. The new Santa Fe, this particular model is, by the way, their more off-roady version, which is the kind of like the wilderness in the Subaru front. This is the XTR, and it's got a few things that I'll go over that are a little more, this vehicle's kind of focused more towards going a little further off-road than the regular Santa Fe, let me put it that way. But they've made this vehicle so much bigger, and they've added a third row standard. So you get a three-row SUV with much longer wheelbase than the old days. The original Santa Fe, which I remember very fondly, had a 103-inch wheelbase, and this one has a 110-inch wheelbase. And boy, the biggest dramatic change, in my opinion, though, is just the styling. The original Santa Fe and all the additions up to this point, and this is the 5th generation, always had kind of a rounded, more of a crossover SUV aspect, as opposed to the big boxy kind of a sport utility of the past, wagon-esque sort of Land Cruiser, if you will. But this is the direction that Hyundai has taken this vehicle, and the result is, like I say, you got a much longer wheelbase, and you have a whole lot of cargo room, and you have a lot of cool stuff. I have to show you something right off the bat because I love this. In order to get into the back of the vehicle, look at here. See, you got a handle right here so that it's much, much easier. Let's do this here. There we go. It's much easier. You put your foot here and you put your arm here, and you can climb up on the top there to access the roof rack. Isn't that clever? It's sticking, by the way, on this vehicle right now because it is so cold out. It's sub-freezing, let me put it that way. But there's all kinds of neat things like this all over this vehicle. It has a completely different powertrain than the original, although the original, if I recall, had about a 2.4 liter inline four-cylinder. And the only engine available at this time on this vehicle is an inline four-cylinder. But there's two versions of it. There is this version, which is the turbocharged inline four non-hybrid, which is just a regular ICE internal combustion engine, or there is a hybrid version which has a slightly different sized four-cylinder engine and a hybrid power plant, which is great because it suits this vehicle very well, I would think. For now, we're just going to be testing the conventional engine though, and we'll get into that in depth because it's a very interesting engine. No V6. And that's one thing I'll miss. I miss across the board with every manufacturer. These new Turbocharged 4 cylinders are nice. They're primarily aimed at, people think it's better mileage. No, not really. It's actually aimed towards lower emissions. But the mileage is better for the most part, depending on the vehicle. Some of them aren't that much better than the old V6, believe it or not. But the big thing is that's what everybody's doing, so that's what we got to live with. And I'll tell you all about what this engine's like. It seems to fit the vehicle quite well. As a matter of fact, this particular version, the more off-roady version, has a towing capacity with a brakes trailer, of course, of 4,500 pounds if you have the tow package, which this does. So it seems to be doing quite, I've been driving it a couple of days here, and so far so good. I mean, it seems like it's a very fitting power plant, 8-speed transmission, so it's very, very smooth in all its shifting. It's shifting all the time, like all these cars do nowadays. Matter of fact, when you originally got the Santa Fe back in 2001, you could get a manual transmission with it, if I recall. I think it was a 5-speed. But anyway, what we have now is the latest permutation of a very, very happy vehicle. A lot of families have enjoyed these things because it's got a lot of room on the inside, and all-wheel drive capability, and incidentally this particular model range, or trim range I should say, the XTR, comes standard with all-wheel drive. And Hyundai has developed a very sophisticated all-wheel drive system that works great, very different from what they originally had on the original Santa Fe, because it was just, if I remember right, it was just there was a link between the rear axle and the front axle, and if the front axle started to slip, the rear axle would kick in. And that's all that happened. It didn't have all the super sophisticated traction controls and torque splitters and all kinds of stuff like that. But this is a very, very interesting system because they've been using it on the Hyundais for several years now, and it seems to work quite well. And you also have more rugged, if you will, tires on here, which are also larger. And ultimately, here's our XR, what have I been calling it? It's an XRT. That's what it is. I get so confused with all these designations. The XRT has more ground clearance, has about 1.5 inches more than the standard version of the Santa Fe, and has all kinds of little things on it to make it a little more suitable to go off-road. But before we go into that stuff, let's take a look under the hood with this new, fairly interesting, turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine. Well, what do we have? We have a Smart Stream. Actually, this is part of Hyundai's Theta 3, I think it is, engine family. And this is a Smart Stream turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine. It is dropped into the engine cap here, excuse me, in a transverse manner. 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. And your turbocharging is done right back there, and your intake is right up here in the front. And one of the things I've noticed about this engine right off the bat is it has a fair amount of room around it, which is terrific if you ever need to do some tinkering. Tinkering is facilitated by having a lot more room here, so that's great. Incidentally, in terms of the intake side of things, this has both port and direct injection. So you get the best, I can't talk. I told you it's really cold out here. You get the best of both worlds by having both types of systems, because depending on what the RPM is and what the load on the engine is and all kinds of different things, sometimes port fuel injection actually works a little bit more efficiently than direct injection, and vice versa. And then you have the fact that port fuel injection helps clean up the carbon deposit situation you often get with a direct injection engine. So it's the way to go. That's how everybody's meandering in that direction, and that's a good thing for you consumers out there. We have our air box right here, and then the air intake goes right in there, and then the turbocharging goes right in here. And naturally we have an intercooler up front somewhere, I assume. I haven't ripped it apart and looked at it, but it is my belief that there is in fact an intercooler, because all turbochargers these days, you got to have them in order to really maximize your power. Speaking of power, we got 277 horsepower at a peak of 5,800 RPM. And let me go back here and let me facilitate the information process. 311 foot-pounds of torque at 4,000 RPM. So that's kind of high in comparison with a lot of turbocharged engines, but they know what they're doing. I mean, and you do seem to have plenty of low-end grunt on this engine. And one of the things I always love to see on so many of these four-cylinder engines, and everybody's using them nowadays, is look at this structure in here. This is all engine stabilization to help get the vibration away from you so you don't have to deal with it. So you get that, and we have, this is our engine coolant thing. I only see one, so I gotta assume that there is, in fact, an intercooler. There's gotta be, right? Yeah, there is. Let's just say it's as red as they say. Here is our 12-volt battery right here, incredibly easy to access. Everything on this engine looks like it's pretty easy to get to. And the transverse mounting is pretty much standard in this type of vehicle. In all, for the most part, crossover SUVs, that's the way they put the engine. You can tell you're getting to your more heavy-duty type of off-road situation, truck-like chassis, when the engine is running this way, is running in a longitudinal manner as opposed to the transverse. But transverse is great because it packages the engine weight just over the front wheels, which aids everything, handling, traction, whole 9 yards. So that's a good thing. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward, and I would think that even if you had to have that turbocharger dealt with at some point, it's easy. It looks like it's fairly easy to get to. Like I say, you have a good amount of space around here, and I always like to see that because that just makes life easier. And of course, this thing's never going to have any problems anyway. But look at a dipstick. It's got a dipstick. They're starting to disappear. Hyundai has got it together so well with a lot of things. They don't change stuff that would really not be of any benefit to change it. And I think the electronic oil checking systems that some people are using in lieu of a dipstick is just dumb, because that can fail and dipsticks rarely fail. They're usually pretty good. What kind of oil does it take? I don't know. I'm assuming, I'm going to guess 020, but I don't see it displayed prominently anywhere. Where do you put the oil in? Let's see. Can we find that? Can we find that? Where do we add our oil? Wow, I don't see it. I see our dipstick, but I do not see. It's probably right in front of me, probably a snake. I'll look at this video later when I'm editing, and I'll say, oh, it's right there. It says, oh, here we go. I think if you pop this up, it's right underneath it. This is naturally, these engine covers just pop right up, and you got your engine underneath. So it's under there. And I'll see if I can find it. I'll pop that up later, and maybe I'll tell you what kind of engine oil it takes. But I imagine it's something fairly available and not too obscure, like 0W8, which you get in your Toyota Crown, I think it is. But anyway, so there we go. And it has an 8-speed automatic transmission, all part of the Smart Stream Theta 3 engine family for your pleasure, entertainment, and motivation. Such a beautiful thing is a wheel with a tire on it. We got our, this is all part of your XTR, is that, did I get XRT? See, I get so confused. Your more off-roady package here on our Santa Fe, you get these 30-inch tires, which are very, very nice because they use, I believe, 18-inch wheels. Yep. and which is a really good size in terms of having all kinds of tires to pick from. But it's always, just generally speaking, a good size, because armed as it is with the terrain contact Continental tires, which are a very good tire, by the way. These are 245/60 R18s. You have a bit of, these things can take some punishment, and you can, if you live in an area where it just snows constantly, for example, you can put snow tires on. I mean, there's so many different options that tire size and an 18-inch wheel give you that I think is really, really good. It's a good choice for this, and it's a bigger tire than what normally they put on the rest of the Santa Fe line. It's all part of you having more off-road accessibility. Now, this is not like a hardcore boulder basher or anything like that, but it does have a substantial amount of ground clearance, and it's designed so you can go a little further down that trail with your family. Maybe tow that little trailer, that little camp trailer behind you. It can do that. It's right up there, like I said, with like the Subaru Wilderness people and the Trail Sport Honda. I can't even remember that. TRD, RAV4 Toyota. I mean, you know, they all have their thing now. They have their off-road version. So this is what this offers forth for you, which is great. It seems to be a real good package overall, actually. All right, so we'll go around and take a look at this. Like I said, this is such a long vehicle by comparison to the original. And there's something else that Hyundai is very, very proud of with this thing, and that is the lift gate, because it's super wide. It's a super wide lift gate. So you have all this space, and they actually call this a terrace design. So that like you can sit out and enjoy, here's your terrace type. And it ultimately means, since we have a 3-row, that you have a very high lift over, but it's not excessive. It's pretty much what I would call par for the course in terms of most of these 3-row SUVs like this. You just pop the 3rd row up like that, and there you go. And there's a lot of cargo room, as you can imagine. And this, there we go. With the 2nd row down, let's see. Oh man, I don't have my specifications with me. Well, I'll put them down there. I'll give you the full cargo capacity, but it's very, very well finished, the cargo area. And you have this is very handy, by the way. You have this little area here, which has, here's your jacking implements, because there is a temporary spare tire underneath the floor here. And then you got this very nice bin right here, which I have put the snow scraper, in case they're looking for it later. That's what I did with it. But oh, we also have, I didn't realize this, you got this, let's fold these boys. Look at that. Now this one didn't go all the way down the right, obviously, because the front seat is all, I always get these vehicles and the front seat is all the way back. That's because there's a very large person riding as a passenger in the front seat, I guess. I don't know. But look at all this space you have. It's got a certain amount of carnivorous, what is it when it's cavernous? That's what I'm thinking of. But you have all this excellent cargo capacity. And you also have, we'll check out that 3rd row and see if you have room for adults back here. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, I bet you do, because there's the roof itself looks like it's got all these raises, indentation type things to make the headroom more plentiful. So you also have a bunch of other good stuff here. You have a 12-volt converter. You have a 110-volt right there. Here's a rear air conditioning control. Huh? How about that? So you can have your own air conditioning back here. And you can sit out here, and you can sit a spell and admire the horse trailer and all the dead vegetation during winter. It's kind of depressing, actually. It'll be green soon, I hope. And there you go. I mean, they are really proud of how big this opening is, and it is huge, I must admit. The whole back of the car opens up for your cargo needs. And I like that a lot. And again, it's real hard to characterize other than tell you, well, the wheelbase is 110 inches and what kind of space you have. In terms of, is it a really big vehicle? No, it doesn't have a huge footprint. It's got a tall, boxy footprint, that's for sure, and that's where all the room comes from. But it's still physically, it's not an enormous vehicle. You can still get it, I'm sure, into most garages without any problem, depending on how much stuff you've left about your garage. You got the 3 snow blowers, none of them will start, and that kind of thing. I mean, it's easy to park. It has a very good turning radius, I have discovered, because I've been whipping in and out of a couple of parking places. And so that's a real practical family matter. The whole theme of this, which I should have gone to initially, is Hyundai believes that the Santa Fe is basically designed to combine the two worlds of your urban living and your outdoor living. And this is the more outdoorsy one of all of them, but the whole idea is to bring the environment around you in, if you will, to have a vehicle that you can actually go out and enjoy nature with, at the same time use it in an urban environment without any compromise whatsoever. It's very comfortable. It rides firm, but it rides well. And the size is not excessive, none of that stuff. And it's designed with this engine, it will get good mileage too. I mean, I mentioned before it's mostly for emissions, these turbocharged inline 4s, but there is provided that you don't drive like a madman, there is definitely an advantage to having this type of power plant as opposed to the old V6s in terms of fuel economy, because it does do better, no question. And even though I always wonder about that, because they do all these things to improve fuel economy in terms of the engine size, they make the engine smaller even though the output is higher, but they make it about as aerodynamic as a brick. So I don't know if they know what they're doing. I just talk about it, so what the heck. Anyway, let us move on to the beautiful interior. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Sounds of Nature's warmth in winter. It's not doing the job though, because my hands are freezing. And it says up on this display here that it's 16 degrees, but it ain't a lick over 14. I'm telling you, it's cold. It's cold. Inside our Hyundai Santa Fe XTR, we have a very interesting combination of high-tech visual displays and really good down-to-earth controls, which is one of the things that I am so pleased with Hyundai has stayed the course as far as making things logical and functional. Much better than a lot of other manufacturers, because so many manufacturers, as I always harp about this, are constantly moving over to doing everything with the touch screen, and in order to use a touch screen you have to look down and look at it, and that's a distraction. So in this car there's quite a bit that you can just, once you learn your way around, you can do everything by feel, and that way you can keep your eyes on the road and watch all these people nearly crashing into you because they're messing with their touch screens. So you see what I'm saying? I'm hoping the other manufacturers will realize at some point that they've gone a bit too far with their touchscreen love. But anyway, well, the way this, the all new, I say all new, like I say, it was 24 that went all new, but this is all new to us. Has a, similar to what General Motors is doing now, they have a wonderful, it's like almost like it's one thing going over to the main touchscreen, navigation screen over here, and your instrument cluster over here. Now what is that annoying flashing that you're probably seeing right here? That is something I don't like on any cars, and that is it's monitoring your head and your body and telling you need to take a break when you just look out the window or something. I find these things to be incredibly annoying, and I have not yet figured out a way to turn them off. And I don't know if you can. I always wondered what happened. There was a couple of times when I was first driving this thing where I had my hands on the steering wheel thusly, and I would do something like this to like change lanes or something like that. And when it would see that, it would block that thing for a second, and that would for some reason shut down the cruise control. And it later on, as I've had the vehicle, it quit doing that, which is kind of fascinating. But that's one of the things in the modern safety era that you have to deal with. They're just throwing all this tech at things, and I don't think anything is being tested as much as it should be anymore. But I digress. So on with our Santa Fe. The analog imitation, because it's not true mechanical analog, of course. The digital analog situation. Here, look at this tachometer here on the right. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, that's it's visually, it's very nice, and it's pretty straightforward, and it does change depending on your drive mode. Right now we're in the snow drive mode, and if we go down to normal, nothing happens to it. But if we go to sport, it goes all red. Sport always goes red like this on everything. It's kind of amazing. Then you drop down another one. This is my drive. My drive is the drive that you can actually set yourself. Oops, I'm not trying to connect a Bluetooth device. You silly. There we go. Canceling. Cancel. Okay, let's try that again. Snow, my drive, settings. There we go. So this is what our my drive settings let us do. We have a powertrain setting where we can automatically select the optimal drive mode based on driving characteristics. Normal, sport, or smart. You can put that in the area of semi-manual operation as far as what you want it to do. It says it will automatically select the optimal drive mode, but I think you can actually select it to stay there. If you leave it on smart, that's what smart does. If you go to sport, it'll just stay on sport. If you go to normal, it'll stay on normal. But smart will adapt itself depending on how you're driving at the moment. We have two different kinds of steering settings. We have normal and sport. These things are almost always left on sport by previous drivers, I've discovered. And who doesn't want a little bit better handling and a little bit crisper feel to the steering? I think pretty much everybody does. So that's where you'll usually find that. But those are the adjustments you can make in the My Drive mode right there. And the snow mode, which I'm in right now because I'm sitting on snow and ice. And what else? Normal. So those are our drive settings, and there's, like I say, there's a slight shift in the instrument display when you do that, but it's no big deal. It's just basically color. It changes. Now in the middle here we have a little trip computer, which we can, here's our trip distance and timer and everything since the last reset. Auto stop, sensory flute. Current trip is we are not going anywhere at the moment, so it's 0. And sensory fueling, that's my favorite. And it is telling me that I've driven 255.7 miles since this vehicle was refueled. 90% of that is my driving. And the average is 23.5 miles per gallon. We'll see what we get overall when we gas it up. But if that's what it's getting, that's pretty good. Especially for, I mean, all vehicles, electric, gas, whatever, they all suffer during the winter months when it's really cold, because it just makes everything stiffer and harder to turn as far as bearings and everything else. It just knocks down your mileage a little bit. And with electrics, of course, you got battery concerns that it reduces the capacity of your battery. Not as bad as it used to, but it still happens. So we go down here, and on our steering situation, wheel they call it, we have over on the left hand side is our cruise control, which is here is our adaptive cruise settings, and right here of course is your following distance. This is your automatic steering, which you can turn on whether or not you have the cruise control on. So if you want the car to steer, it's basically a lane centering device that'll try to keep you in the center of the lane as best it can. This is what I was just using, by the way. If I want to change the overall, I usually leave it on the to find out what kind of mileage I'm getting and trip distance and that kind of thing. But here you have a compass, or you have this will show you what your adaptive cruise control is up to if you want. This is a popular one with me because it tells you what your front and rear wheels are doing in terms of how the torque is being allocated to fronts and the backs. And I mentioned, when we go on our drive, I mentioned this thing called torque steer, because I experienced when I first got it a fair amount of it. And what torque steer is when you have a front drive vehicle and you apply the accelerator heavily, let us say, it tends to pull to one direction or the other a little bit in terms of what it's doing to the steering wheel. You can actually feel it in the steering wheel. And one of the ways that manufacturers have countermanded that, because it's kind of unpleasant, people don't like it, and I don't like it myself, is if the drive shafts from the differential on the front are the same length, that usually takes care of torque steer. But not always, but most of the time. And I don't know, I haven't gotten underneath there and measured them drive shafts, but there is a little bit of torque steer, but it can be completely countermanded if you have an all-wheel drive system that also kicks the rear wheels into play. And this does, and it does. But in different settings, I mean, especially, I don't know what sports setting does. I believe sports setting does use all-wheel drive. But in the normal setting, most of the time it's going to just be in front-wheel drive in order to save fuel and be a more economical to operate vehicle. And that's where you can get a little bit of torque there. It's not horrific. It's just very unusual. I haven't actually experienced any torque steer on any front-wheel drive vehicles lately. When I say lately, I mean in the last 5 years or so. They've pretty much engineered it out. So anyway, but that's going back, like I said, here's our cruise control array, and this is how we adapt our, oh, here's tire pressure too. I wasn't done. You get tire pressure, you get that. Oh, very nice. So a lot of these settings have sub-settings. What about this one? Now the compass pretty much stays where it is, but it will, and this one stays where it is. Okay, so that's basically what you have there in terms of your center trip computer and the various displays you can put up, dial up very easily. Right side, what do we have on the right side? More of a stereo thing. Here's our mode, depending on what you want to listen to. If you want to listen to like satellite radio, or you want to listen to your local radio like AM or FM, that kind of thing. Here's where we speak to the car if we need to have a conversation with the car. The star setting is, of course, one that you can program yourself to do whatever you want it to do within reason. It has a bunch of settings that you can put in there so that that's what it's activated. When you hit it, that's what it does. And here we have our telephone, so we can answer phone calls, make phone calls. It's all, you know what this means. You've seen it a million times. So there we are. Up top we have our paddle shifters, of course, for manual operation. This is an 8-speed automatic transmission. And the steering wheel, of course, both tilts, tilts, and up. Hang on. It's frozen. It's frozen solid. Hang on a minute. Hang on. Well, that didn't go well. There we go. You see, it telescopes. It's a little stiff right now because it's been sitting out in the freezing. But anyway, very adjustable, and that's good because this seat also has a lot of adjustments to it. Naturally, your lumbar and your reclining and everything else to all custom tune it to you. And it's taken me a while to get comfortable in this car, but that's not a reflection of the car at all. It just has, it's a very versatile in terms of what you can do. And I think it can, it's one of these vehicles that can really accommodate a broad variety of physical types, because there's a lot of room here. You got a lot of headroom. I got my hat on here and I'm still got 2 or 3 inches, and you can take it up and down. Whoa, there we go higher, and then we go back. You can really adjust this thing. It has a very, very roomy driver's accommodation, which is quite desirable, of course. Now, let's go over here because this is interesting. This is your transmission selection unit. To put it in drive, you tilt it that way. And, oh, I have to press on the brake pedal, sorry. There we go, we're in drive, neutral, reverse with your snowed over rear backup camera, and you push the button there to put her back in park. This is a real nice system. It clears out all this area so you don't have a shifter here, and it's actually fairly intuitive. You get used to it very quickly. So Hyundai's been doing this for a while, and I like it. It's good. Over on the right stalk, of course, we have your elaborate system of windshield wipers. I have not been able to get the front windshield washer to work since I've had the car. I'm not sure why that is, because there's plenty of fluid in there, and strangely enough, the rear system seems to work most of the time. It's obviously frozen, and I guess the washer fluid in there is not good to very low because I think it's frozen solid. That's what the problem is. But I mention that simply because this time of year it's actually very important, because you're constantly getting this snow, salt, grunge stuff that gets on your windshield, and you're constantly cleaning your windshield. Which, by the way, friends, here's a tip from Boots Tarkington. If you want to continue to go forward and see, make sure constantly replenish your windshield washer fluid, because you're going to be using a lot of it. Just saying, you know, it's just you'll get really upset and angry if your windshield is obscured and you have no way to clear it without getting out and wiping it down. So, okay, what else do we have here? Here's when we get into the realm of wonderful button controlled things. Like, for example, here's your home setting right there, and it's telling me that we're listening to sounds of nature. Then we have a map right there, which is our navigation system. And as you can see, depending on what you're doing, it will go into a 3D mode, which is very attractive. I have used, there we go, there's our 3D mode. And I have used it in practice. I was in a terrible rainstorm going to a place I'd never been before, deep in the heart of Connecticut, and it navigated me there beautifully. Kept me aware of the traffic situations and everything else. Very good navigation system. And it's one of my favorites because A, you don't need a subscription. As far as I know, let me look at this here. There is no subscription required, unlike some manufacturers that have gone off the deep end with that crap. And it's just an onboard thing that I think all cars should come with these days, and you shouldn't have to even think about interfacing with your phone or anything else to get your navigation system. You can, of course, interface with your phone if that's what you want to do. As far as I know, this thing is both Bluetooth and yeah. You get your Sirius XM for 30 days when you buy it, and as near as I can tell, I don't see it right there. Oh, there we go. So here's what I'm looking at, our Monroney. As far as I know, we do in fact have both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I don't see where it says you don't. There it is. Wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So there you go, and you can do that wirelessly if that's what you're into. But since I leave the house these days, half the time I forget my phone. I think that's on purpose, actually. You don't have to have your phone in order to have a navigation system, and that's important. Now, with all these buttons you have here to do things manually, you actually have a volume on-off button and a tuning button for your radio. How about that? You also have a very large and comprehensive climate control situation right here, where you can heat your seats. One thing that surprised me about this, I haven't found it, and that leads me to believe it doesn't have it, is a heated steering wheel. Because it's been so cold, I really liked having one, but I haven't had one. Well, I don't even have one on my car either, but one of our cars does, and I think it's just a revelation. And you have, when you drop down below that, you have just various, here's your four-wheel drive lock system, which will put it into four-wheel drive and keep it there, so you'll have like a 50-50 split between the front and the rear drivetrains. You can turn off your engine auto stop-start if you so decline. Here is your hill descent, which everything seems to have these days, which is kind of good actually, because those things can come in real handy, especially if you're out trail munching with this XTR version. Here is our camera, but there's only basically one camera. It's the rear camera, and you can't really do much with it. There's different lenses. Look at there. That's the close-up lens. This is more of a wide angle, and sorry it's dirty. I thought I just cleaned it, but I didn't. And then you have your more conventional, which actually has the and this is also it looks like a straight down mode, which will allow you to hitch up if you have the towing package. And as I said, it'll tow 4,500 pounds. I believe I mentioned that, but well, if I haven't, it'll tow 4,500 pounds. What else do we have over there? Just our parking. You can turn your parking warnings on and off. That is, of course, your proximity sensors that tell you you're about to bump into something, a person, a dog, a car, a tree, whatever. So, for moving here is our near field communication block for charging your cellular phone. Very, very easy to access. You just plop it right there. It's pretty smart. And here we have, of course, some USB-Cs for your various devices. Then we have your cup holders, which are kind of far back, but it's all right. It's just, I found them to be far back compared to a lot of the norm out there that I test regularly. Here, our little console is nice and deep and has a light. Oh, look at there, a little light and everything. That's so cute, isn't it? Now this console has something very special about it, which I'm going to share with you in just a minute. This is one of the neatest features on this car, and this car has a lot of very neat features, very smart features. As we continue to migrate, here we go to our glove box, which is actually fairly deep. You got room enough in there for your not your laptop. Well, yeah, if you small laptop, you can get in there. You can definitely get a tablet in there. And let me move all this stuff out of the way here so you can gaze upon the beautiful perforations. This is in fact this is not leather, I don't believe. This is in fact a man-made, what is it here? It's high something. What does that say there? Can you read that? But anyway, it is a very comfortable synthetic. And of course, this front seat is heated. And it does have very decent side bolsters, as you can see. And the perforations are there, but you don't have ventilation with the front seats. You just have heating, which is kind of surprising in a way, but you know, that's one way they keep the price of this vehicle actually reasonably affordable. All right then, so that is basically our front end. You do have controls up here, of course, for your conventional sunroof, moonroof situation. And with a nice manual sunshade, see? No overly frilly power anything up there, and that's good because that's one of those things that's less likely to break on you, and it helps keep the price down, which is always good. All right. Shall we go to the back seat? I have to show you this console thing. This is very cool. Here's this again. Remember I told you about this? That's how you grab hold of there to go up there if you're loading your roof rack. I think that's so clever. All right, now in our second row of our 3-row Hyundai Santa Fe, we have very, very good leg room. You can slide forward and aft in a 60-40 increment. And here we go. Here's our console. I was talking about this earlier. Look at this. You can open it from the back seat. How cool is that? That is amazing hinge work, because you see, you can open it the normal way in the front, but you can also open it like that. I love that. USB-C, USB-C. You have a very, very actually generous pocket here for you can, again, take that tablet computer that you have and just slide it right in there if you want. But you have, like I said, plenty of leg, plenty of headroom. It doesn't have a panorama roof, but you can live without that, right? And our windows go down 100%. I do appreciate that. We don't have shades, but who needs shades? Come on. Very convenient map light up there. And it's very comfortable back here. And you do have also the ability, woo, to recline a fair amount. Woo. So that is completely adjustable for yourself too. It's a very, very nice roomy environment in the second row. The second row is great. And another thing I love about this particular second row on the XDR, it's not captain's chairs. It's a bench seat, which makes a whole lot more sense. Especially if you got kids, you can pile 3 kids in this seat, no problem. I love that. I think that's the way to go. Captain's chairs are nice, but I think this is a better way to go. All right. This is how we, I have not experimented with this before. How do I get you forward? How do I access? Well, anyway, here's our rear row, third row back here. As a matter of fact, it looks like it's roomier than you might expect. Now, without, oh, here we go. I'm pushing the button and nothing's happening. Maybe I'm supposed to do this. Hang on. Now, what happens if I do? What if I press this? That's what happens. It slides forward like that. That's how we get in here. You push the damn button is what you do. That's what reasonable people do. I'm going to close the door here so that I don't freeze to death. There we go. Now, very high floors so your legs kind of stick up like so, but there's a lot of room back here. You could definitely put some people back here. 2 adults could fit. Absolutely. And look at what you have. You have an on-off. Let's turn her on. We have a heater blower right back here for rear AC, but I'm sure air conditioning means air conditioning. Is that going to be cold? Let's see if it warms up. Let's find out, shall we? But very, very good room back here. I'm surprised. And here, look at here. You have your own personal map lights back here, which is great. A decent amount of foot room and leg room depending on how far back the seat is. It makes a lot of sense. That the only weird thing about this that's unusual to me, it's not unusual to have a floor that's fairly high so your knees are up like they are. But what is strange is you don't have like terraced seating where you're sitting up higher here. You actually have it's not exactly claustrophobic, but you just have a higher level up here where your second row seat is than on a lot of vehicles. But the bottom line that matters is it is very roomy for 2 people. I think that's really air conditioning. How do you turn heat on here? There's a way, I'm sure. But you can do a lot of different things as far as your setup, splitting this with these split rows and everything else, and this splits 50-50, your third row here. So you can, depending on what you need to haul in terms of people and cargo, you can do a lot of variations here. You got your 60-40 here and your 50-50 here. And this is all in a vehicle that's not huge. This is in a vehicle that's, roughly a mid-size. It's almost splitting that line these days between a compact and a mid-size. It's not an enormous vehicle. It's bigger. I feel confident in saying it's much bigger than previous generations of the Santa Fe. But the bigness really comes from the new configuration of the cabin being a wagon, more of a wagon instead of more of a fastback kind of thing. So look at all this headroom. I mean, you got lots and lots of headroom. So if you have a family that wears hats, this may be the vehicle for you. Oh, there is one more thing I do want to show you about this. Sorry it's so dirty, but hey, it's winter. We have back here,
Oh, what's this? I've been looking for this.
we have back here when your third row is deployed, you really have done a real number on your overall cargo capacity. Just something to remember. And they made the decision, instead of having really cramped third row, you have a roomy third row, but not much cargo space left over. Just so you know, that's a decision they made. And they're so proud of this liftgate being so wide, so you can hang out with this terrace over you. I believe that's what they call it. But anyway, it's a nice situation for you. All righty then. Well, here we are. So I've selected warmth in winter for our snow excursion. They said 4 to 8 inches of snow we were going to get. We got maybe 2. You know, but that's all right. That's fine. It's actually very slick because there was rain and then it turned to snow. You see. And off we go. Are we going? There we go. Snow setting. Got some very good Continental all-terrain tires. Oh, I can already tell it's very slick, because we got this layer of ice with snow on top of it, and that is really, woo boy, woo doggies. That's a slick situation. And there's a rock right there, and so here we go. And knowing the state of Connecticut, the roads are probably dry now, but I had an appointment this morning, and about this time, and they canceled. It was a medical thing, and they canceled on me because they were afeared of the storm, afeared of it. But it turns out to be not a bad deal. Now here's a good test for this all-wheel drive system. Oh yeah, it's just crawling right through everything, no problem. So now, as you can see, the road is slick because we have this mixture of snow and ice, and I'm sure they've probably run out of salt by now, because they've been putting salt down pretty much daily, even though there's no chance of precipitation. And just I am convinced they're doing it completely just to annoy me. And our windshield washer is not doing a very good job. Hey, stop that. Quit. There we go. But the defroster system seems to be working well. We don't have a heated steering wheel, which would be nice, because it's, according to this, 19 degrees. I think it's a little warmer than that, but we do have a beautiful cloud-free sky, which will result in some sunshine coming through. And even when it's frigid cold, it still seems to melt things pretty nicely. But this thing's very comfortable in this snow. It's not having a problem at all. It'll be fun to see in a minute whether or not the adaptive cruise control can do its adaptive cruising. But you still got to be careful. You know, a lot of people, here's the thing with all-wheel drive that always amuses me. So many people think they get it on, it's their first time to have it on their vehicle. And they assume that, wow, I can just go as fast as I want because I got all this all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive does, you know, Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers on the public radio years ago made such an excellent point, is it just gets you going. It doesn't make anything better for the most part in terms of, especially braking, which is, we'll turn my seat heat down here because, wow, it works very well. And I can also, where is it? I'll turn off that. And we're still melting the snow off of the side view mirrors, but otherwise, the defroster system works good. And it's doing nicely, this vehicle, in its snow setting. I feel like the gearing is a little bit different in the snow setting. And I'm going to be able to go back to normal, I think, here pretty quick. Two things I should share with you about the Santa Fe. And the thing that kills me about this is I keep thinking mentally, this is actually something about me, I guess, not the car, but maybe it is. I keep thinking I'm driving a Honda Pilot. For some reason, it just reminds me of that. It's also it's sort of similar to the Volkswagen Atlas, but the Atlas is much more Spartan in terms of how things are laid out. I don't know, it just has a different feel to it. So much plastic. But this reminds me of the Honda Pilot, and there's something else that's bizarre about this vehicle for me, is that, and I mean, when I say that, I keep thinking mentally, I'm driving a Honda. I'm not driving a Hyundai Santa Fe. It's weird. I don't know why that is, other than they're similar. But cars can do that to you sometimes, and you sometimes wonder if one is kind of taking the lead off the other in terms of what they want their vehicle to be. They want it to be similar to that one, so it ends up very similar to that vehicle. But the other thing that's kind of strange is I seem to have a hard time getting properly adjusted in the driver's seat. And there are so many adjustments, especially when it comes to the position of the steering wheel, because it both telescopes and tilts, as most of them do these days. But I'm still futzing with it all the time to try to get comfortable. And I think that is nothing bad about the vehicle, because it just has the adjustment variability that you have at your fingertips is great. I mean, because you can do all kinds of things. You can go up and down, you can go back and forth, you can lumbar, you can not lumbar, you can do all the wonderful things that most cars have on them nowadays. But it's just taken me longer to find that sweet spot as far as what feels ergonomically just right for me. And it's coming down to the position of the steering wheel, which is a little different. It almost reminds me, again, going the Honda route, especially older CRV Hondas were like upright and truck-like in how you sat in the vehicle. And this is sort of reminiscent of that. It's more of an upright position overall, although you can, recline the seat, put it all the way back, and do the, semi-gangster thing. But it's just, overall, it seems to be it's a more upright riding position. So, and very adjustable. And like I said, these are not criticisms. These are just observations that I've noticed, because I just, like I said, I've just been futzing around with it a lot more than I normally do. With most cars, I arrive on a driving position and stay there. But not this time. This has been, it's been an experiment. It's been several days of variation. I don't think I've kept it exactly the same a single day I've driven it. And that's unusual. Could be me though. Could completely be me. I've had some back issues on and off the last 2 weeks that have not been severe at all, but I think that may have something to do with getting comfortable. But as I mentioned before, the ride quality is firm, and you can really feel like right now this is a classic bit of broken pavement that has a lot of expansion joints in it for some strange reason, and frost heaves, if you will, because the temperature variation we get here in the state of Connecticut is huge. It's 20 degrees right now, which is the high today. It was really cold this morning. It was well down in the single digits. I think it was 2 at the house. But then during the summer, it can get pretty damn hot too. So you have and the pavement has to deal with all that, plus this annoying burden that is placed on pavement, and it has big rumbling vehicles going over it all the time. Imagine if that were you, and you were a strip of pavement, and you had to deal with that all the time. That'd be most annoying. They've really taken the chassis and just when somebody overhauls and changes something, a lot of times it's not that dramatic a change. In this case, this is a stem to stern redo of the vehicle, and it's kind of lost the personality it used to have, and in its place is a good personality, no question about it. Something that I think a lot of people are going to like. And this inline 4-cylinder turbo is a real nice engine. I mean, the more I drive it, the more I like it. It's just, at certain moments, it just doesn't quite have that refinement that the V6 had. But it's quite good. And the next question that we'll all be asking ourselves is, will it continue to deliver this really good gas mileage, which is 24 miles per gallon right now? I put 217 miles on this thing. How did I do that? Well, I took a trip in it, but it wasn't far. It was just an hour away. But it's a good engine. I mean, so it's going to be a little more fuel efficient. It does have a lot of power, 277 horsepower, like I said. 300 and something.
What is it? Hey, what does it say here? Our torques.
Our torques are 311 pounds of feet at 4,000 RPM. So it's a good engine. But the big question, like I say, that we're all going to be asking ourselves about it is, how reliable is it going to be? And that is such a bugaboo with me. I think that's one of the number one thing when you're shopping for a vehicle is, how big a vehicle do you need? That's a starting point, and a really important one. You got to figure how many people do you regularly haul in it? Do you need something that you can haul plenty of cargo? You know, all these questions come to bear. And the answer is, only you can answer. And you got to be realistic, because it's the one big thing that you can tweak a few other things once you have the vehicle, if you have to suit your lifestyle. One of the big tweaks is tires. Get the right kind of tires for the driving you do. This vehicle, like I said, the XTR version of the Santa Fe, is designed to be a little more trail worthy, which it is. They've boosted the ground clearance by 1.5 inches. I'm not sure how they did that. I don't know if we're looking at completely different suspension and they lifted it that way, or it's just the tire size, because these are all mounted on 18-inch wheels. These are pretty good sized tires. I had them parked next to my 4Runner, had this thing parked next to it. They both have 18-inch wheels, and yet the 4Runner tires are a lot larger for some reason. I can't figure out if you could go with a larger tire on this. I think it's real happy with the tire size it has. And these tires seem to do great so far in this slippery situation. They did great. They've done great. They did it. And the other day was a day where I had to drive a lot in like fairly heavy rain, and they had good traction then too. And then they're fine on dry pavement. So this is the standard OEM Continental tires on this are very good. They suit this thing perfectly. Good choice for Hyundai to have made.
Welcome to Santa Fe Underground.
Here we have a fully independent rear suspension that is actually pretty stout looking. It looks, first of all, it's got a very substantial,
This thing right here. Oh, where's my device? I have my device.
see if it's working. A very substantial subframe here, as is always the situation with body on frame, or excuse me, not body on frame, the opposite of body on frame, unibody construction. You have the suspension is suspended by a subframe. And this looks like a very substantial girder construction. And you have your lower control arm right here. And then you have a, what is it, an upper control arm? Yes, you do. You do have it located with a variety of front and back pieces to keep the rear wheel located and keep the angle, your toe in, your everything else all aligned properly. And you got your nice little coil spring right here, and your drive shaft just past there, which you can see. So the differential is right here, and this is more than likely your one of your solenoids activates and deactivates, separates and unseparates the rear drivetrain from the front drivetrain. And there's your drive shaft running up there. I can't get this, it's just too cold. Well, the fact of the matter is I have on gloves that are too thick. I can't turn on my laser. Well, so much for that. But anyway, you can clearly see the drive shaft up in there. And you can also see we have a fair amount of front protection in terms of, it's not real solid steel, massive skid plates that are covering the front, but you do have some protection there, and you have some protection here on the left and right hand sides. For one of those sides, I believe it's the left side, is probably, oh, there it is right there, your fuel tank, which looks like it's one of the good advantages of this vehicle, since it does have an 1.5 inch extra ground clearance over the standard Santa Fe, is it helps protect some of these components if you do go off-road. If you come around here, you can see one of the front links right here. And it's a very, very solid little setup. And one of the things I like about it is it's not overly elaborate. It's a very straightforward, simple type of rear suspension system, but it is still fully independent, so it does deliver good ride quality. Whoops, sorry. And a fair amount of toughness, and it's a good design for this vehicle, a good fit, because you're not going to be doing any serious off-roading in this thing unless you're an artist, which you're able to. The number one thing in off-road driving, I can tell you from experience, is common sense. And you have to learn the limitations of your vehicle and where various components on the underside of your chassis are in order to avoid banging them on things like rocks. But as far as the traction system, you have a very good one. You have very good tires on this, these Continentals, which are a all-season beauty. And here's our temporary spare right there. So you do have a temporary spare instead of a flat repair kit, which can be real useless if you like DB'd a tire or something when you're driving off-road. Your flat repair kit ain't gonna help you. But then we also have something else that's very good about this. Even though most of the vehicles that have the most travel in terms of off-road driving have straight axles, and I won't get into a long diatribe about why that's the way it is, but the fact is some independent rear suspensions don't have all that much travel. This has a lot of travel to it. As you can see, this particular wheel is almost fully extended, and this one on the right hand side, the passenger side, is almost fully compressed, and the vehicle is still completely level. So this is nice. You know what that reminds me of? I don't know if any of you out there have ever crawled underneath one of them H1 Hummers. It has a very similar look in this. If you squint, if you take your glasses off, if you're like me and you have horrible eyesight, it looks very similar. But the bottom line here is it's a solid setup and should last for years. And if you treat it properly, there's not a whole lot of places you're not going to be able to get to when you need to.
Well, we have experienced our 2025 Santa Fe XRT 2.5T all-wheel drive, which has a base price of $40,850 and an as-tested price of $42,475. So I got pretty decent mileage, about 23 miles per gallon, which is very good for a compact slash mid-size SUV. And they took my old Santa Fe that I loved so much in 2001, and they've done a real nice version of this. I like the boxiness because it gives you a lot more room. It is now a 3-row for those of you that need extra passenger space. And the XRT has got a little more ground clearance and better tires. I mean, come on. You may need to go down to see your Santa Fe dealer, which is your Hyundai dealership, and talk to them about one of these if you're in the market for an SUV, because it's a nice vehicle. It also has a pretty decent price. How about that? That's getting rarer and rarer. So thank you for watching. Be careful out there, and we will see you next time.
Do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube. You eat like the tube. You raise your children like the tube. You even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.